Cain, seed of the serpent or just a fallen man? The hidden story of Cain, his wife, and his lineage. Teaching objective: to explore the spiritual mystery of Cain's identity, his wife, and his descendants, Jubal, Jabal, Tubal-Cain, and Nama, and to address the theological claim that Cain was the seed of the serpent from Genesis 3:15. Foundational texts. Genesis 3:15. I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. Genesis 4:1-2. And Adam knew Eve his wife, and she conceived and bare Cain. Genesis 4:16-26. Cain's exile and the genealogy of his children. The big debate: was Cain the seed of the serpent? Teaching background. Some early Jewish and Gnostic traditions and later Christian interpretations taught that Cain was the physical or spiritual seed of the serpent. This interpretation comes from a mystical reading of Genesis 3:15 and Genesis 4:1. Scriptural reading: and Adam knew Eve his wife, and she conceived and bare Cain, and said, I have gotten a man from the Lord. Genesis 4:1. Two views. View 1, literalist view, Orthodox Christian position. Cain was biologically Adam's son. His sin came from free will and jealousy, not satanic origin. Cain's offering was rejected due to lack of faith and righteousness. Hebrews 11:4, 1, John 3:12. View 2, mystical or esoteric view. Cain was spiritually sired by the serpent in Genesis 3, not biologically. This view is rooted in some Jewish midrash in the Gnostic Gospel of Philip. Jesus may refer to this when he says, You are of your father, the devil, John 8:44. Balanced teaching. Insight: while Cain was physically Adam's son, he spiritually aligned with the serpent through rebellion. This fulfills the prophetic enmity of Genesis 3:15, the spiritual war between the two seeds. Seed of the woman, Christ, seed of the serpent, rebellion, murder, and pride. 3. The story of Cain, fallen worshiper to murderer. 1. Cain's offering, Genesis 4:3-5. Cain offered crops, Abel offered blood, sacrifice. God rejected Cain's offering, not because it was crops, but because his heart lacked faith and obedience. Hebrews 11:4. 2. The first murder, Genesis 4:8. Cain killed Abel out of envy and spiritual rebellion. He became the firstborn of death, aligned not with God, but with darkness. Do not be like Cain, who belonged to the evil one and murdered his brother. 1 John 3:12. Fourth, who was Cain's wife? Genesis 4:17. Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bore Enoch. Questions often asked: where did Cain get his wife? Was she from another race of humans? Biblical answer: Adam and Eve had many sons and daughters. Genesis 5:4. Cain likely married a sister or niece, common before the law. There was no other human line apart from Adam's descendants. God allowed intrafamily marriage early on due to the genetic purity and necessity of population growth. The lineage of Cain, culture without God. Cain's descendants were brilliant, talented, and culturally advanced, but they lived without the presence of God. Genesis 4:16. Breakdown: Jabal, father of tents and livestock. Genesis 4:20. Innovator of nomadic economy. Jubal, father of music and instruments. Genesis 4:21. Origin of culture and entertainment. Tubal-Cain, forger of metal tools. Genesis 4:22. Father of technology and industry. Nama, possibly the wife of Noah, or a representation of vanity. Genesis 4:22. Teaching insight: Cain's line produced civilization without consecration. They had prosperity, but not purity, talent, but not truth music, but no worship. What does it profit a man to gain the world and lose his soul? Mark 8:36. Versus Cain versus Seth. Two lines, two kingdoms. After Abel's death, Seth was born as the appointed seed. Genesis 4:25. Through Seth came Enosh, and then men began to call upon the name of the Lord. Genesis 4:26. What was Cain's line redeemed? No biblical record suggests that Cain's lineage repented or returned to God. His line disappears after the flood. But Seth's line continued through Noah to Abraham and ultimately to Jesus Christ. This reinforces the seed war, the continual battle between the seed of rebellion, self, sin, pride, the seed of obedience, Christ, righteousness, truth. 8. Conclusion. What does this mean for us? Cain's life is a warning and mirror. Spiritual descent is not the same as physical descent. Being in church does not make one spiritually alive. Our offering must be accepted by God. Innovation without worship leads to pride and destruction. We must not glorify culture over the cross. We must choose our seed line. Do we walk like Cain, with talent but rebellion, or like Abel and Seth, with worship and submission? Call to response. Examine your offering. Is your worship acceptable to God? Examine your lineage. Are you spiritually born again or still walking the way of Cain?